All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope we're all enjoying the medium amount of cold, not in the negatives, but also not feeling like spring and thaw at the moment. We get a little colder, I think, at our house when it's too warm in the winter. My name is Eric Herkert Oakland. I am married to Marita Herkert Oakland. She is our student. What is it? I don't remember the title. She works in the student education, student ministry. She's student ministry assistant. She's been doing that for a couple of years, and most notably, I help her out. So that's I come early on Sunday mornings. We get stuff done and set up, and then I'm one of the shepherds in our Sunday school program, which means that my job is to show up and be relational with the kids. And then we have other people volunteer to be teachers and that sort of thing. And it's one of my favorite things about our student ministry is the opportunity or the valuing of just the time we have with the kids. We came here in 2008. Both of my kids, 10 and 7, Miles and Afton, are baptized here. But this is the first committee that I've jumped onto, probably because my wife has kept me so busy and I'm like, hey, I've already got stuff. But this is a really important thing to our family and just something important I believe in. And so I wanted to just lend my time and energy to it. So we're here to talk about the ministry wing renovation, and the term ministry wing, we may not be used to calling it that. Some people call it the education wing. Some maybe call it the office wing or library wing, or the youth and family wing, that sort of thing. But we're just trying to encompass. There's a lot of things that happen in that east wing of the church. So this is just a term we're trying out. And then I just need to. There are 2 partners that will come up in this conversation that we've worked with in the past, and we're working with again and re-engaging with, and that is Groth Design Group, which was a partner with us in the sanctuary renovation, which was a very positive, well-executed renovation, and I think we're all very happy with the space we get to worship in. And then Findorf is the construction partner with us, and they've been really great in being communicative and participating in our committee, which is great. Brief history, and there's more history to this, I'm sure. We were talking whether or not the wing was first built in 1966, which places it not too far, 40 years into we're coming up to our 70th anniversary this year. So that means, it's just a couple decades into the start of the church, they decided they needed that wing, and they would give us a lot more ways to do ministry. In 2016, 2018, there was a series of congregational meetings and feedback to figure out where our ministry should go. And one of the things that came out of that was looking at the education wing or the ministry wing and how we might renovate it. So in 2019, a committee came together. We worked with architects and contractors to come up with a plan, conducted interviews with everybody that used that space to see what were the right things to shift to, reviewed the design options and associated, and then decided on final scope of work. And in 2020, we were ready to present it to the Congregational Council. And obviously, we all sort of put everything on pause. So just add it to the list of things that paused. I got to say, when we this year, this last spring or fall was our first season back into the space full time. And I tell you, we missed a couple of years with some kids going from yellow group to orange group to red group to blue group. So we lost time. We lost space with our youth and our families. And we're still waiting to see that same kind of levels return, but they are returning. We are getting good numbers coming to church every week, and it's growing. So in 2020, we put a hold on it. However, given that everybody was out of the building, we decided to move ahead with a couple of things. So they went through the process of approval, and those things were things like getting the drainage figured out in the wing, insulation, working on the new solar awnings that just finished this past week, I believe, or last week. And so those plans, like all the things that went into kind of creating that plan, like we were able to still move forward with some of those and make some of those work. So it's not that we've been idle. It's not that anybody's been sitting on their hands. However, at the beginning or end of last year, we were sitting in our children's ministry Sunday school meeting and saying, hey, you know what? Should probably time to pick up that torch and see if there's a space for this conversation again. So we reconvened this ministry wing committee, and our first step, we have had a couple of meetings, and now we're just trying to share some information. And the most important thing in this time is that we get your questions and we get your thoughts. We may not have all the answers for those here today, but what you're thinking, what you're concerned with, what you're hoping for are absolutely part of this process. And so we're starting today. There were 5. So this is a sort of a review of where we got to in 2019. And so those things are still kind of in place, but we've taken a few steps to kind of clean it up and make sure what is left for us to do and what's prioritized. So when we met in 2019, there were 5 needs identified. First one, existing building maintenance, making sure that this building that's been here and served us so well continues to in the future. That we maximize the building space, that we're good stewards of it, that we're efficient with it, that a space that the upstairs space is, maybe for Sunday school, but doesn't always have to be used for Sunday school. It can be used to grow in other ways. There are comfort areas. And these will be things like that makes our community more comfortable to come and be a part of here, that opens up our space and our arms to a more diverse group of people, so that when they come here, it doesn't feel like it just fits, someone like me. And sustainable design improvements. Obviously, we're in 2022, and how we build and the materials we use and how we source our energy is important. And then building aesthetics. This one can sometimes feel frivolous, but I think we all understand what it means to have a space that feels homey, that feels comfortable, that feels like it thinks about and lives in our modern world. So to dive into these a little bit deeper, existing building maintenance. I won't say the boring stuff, but this is the really foundational things that make sure that everything else we do doesn't get interrupted, so that we're not dealing with a flooded space and that takes us out of or mildewy space and it takes us out of being able to do ministry. So our site drainage, repairing damage to existing basement, repairing the roof, removal of the chimney fireplace. I think that's primarily the one that is in the youth room. Repairing the basement and updating basement restrooms, upgrade the basement and second floor finishes, repair, upgrade mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and removing hazardous materials. And I believe that those are speculative materials. We don't know for certain where we do. Okay. We absolutely have hazardous materials. Okay. Yeah. Gene, would you clarify that one?
Yeah, just a quick comment. We had a firm specializing in hazardous materials come in and do an assessment for us. And they have identified the floor tiles as the main culprit, plus a few places of insulation. So we're planning to address that in our next budget.
Okay.
We'll see where that goes.
Okay. Maximizing the building space, improvements to the second floor classroom and gathering spaces. If you don't remember, there was one of the big pieces is to take that entry space that's kind of closer to the stairs that are coming up from the gathering space and opening that up to be a very welcoming, but even like a place where we can gather parents and kids, and flexible spaces with different partitions, that modern partitions that are really easy to use and look fantastic. Expanding, improving the first floor offices and meeting spaces as our staff grows, as our needs grows with volunteers. Improving the space for youth ministry. I know they're high schoolers and middle schoolers, and they can deal with a lot of stick them in a corner sometimes and they're just fine, but we want to give them spaces that they want to grow in, and then improve storage for many of our ministries that use the space down here as well. Comfort areas, specifically, these are going to be around the restrooms. The move towards providing single use or single family or single person restrooms that would allow people that identify as different genders to feel comfortable going to a space where they're not questioned or where they typically find kind of points of friction, and that these spaces, these restrooms would also be ADA compliant. So those of different ability are able to use these spaces, and there's not just maybe one stall in one bathroom that works best for them, et cetera. Building aesthetics. I don't have a lot to say here. This is a lot of using, depending on, what finishes we pick for things, how we build furniture that's part of it, or the cabinetry that's used, those sorts of things. And we have some examples of what that could look like, but we're not to that part yet. We haven't gotten to that part of the finishes at all. And then the sustainable building improvements. 1966 was the date that I pulled out of one of the documents that we were using. And one of the biggest, obviously, is the upgrade of mechanical, electrical, plumbing. That wing doesn't have any HVAC to it. And right now we're using independent kind of devices to clean the air and to kind of keep it safe for people. But in the winter, when the boiler needs to go on really hot, it gets really hot up there. And in the summer, it's really, so obviously there's rooms to improve. Our flat roof areas, it's time to replace those. And some of that too is we want to get solar panels up there. And so in order to do that, we need to work on the roof first, make sure that it's where it needs to be. Insulation improvements in the gathering area and ministry wing. And I already said the solar panels. This is one of, again, kind of, we had a small entry into the working with Groth and Findorf. And this is one of like the only render that we have in the budget that we've used so far. But to give you a sense of the upstairs ministry space, where right now we have I believe one of our classrooms is right here, or one of our meeting rooms is right here. It's where the teachers and shepherds meet every morning before the kids come. And there's still a meeting room here, and this meeting room stays. But we're opening this space out, and this is a partition into what's now the music room. And so that would allow us to open that space and create a large gathering.
Point people to the second floor drawing in the check-in room. Look where the check-in room is. We'll get to that.
Yep.
So if you're looking at the second floor plan, that view is what's called the check-in room.
This is the check.
You're at the stairs looking to the northeast.
So we've come up the stairs here. There's a meeting room down here, but we're looking at taking the meeting room that's here and opening up this space, going into the hallway. And then this is currently the music room, but then that's a partition that can be moved to use that. Yep. So that's one example of changing that space so it can be more flexible, that can be used in a numerous ways for kind of opening or gathering or doing some practices with our youth. And then in terms of finishes, this is an example of the partitions that we may be able to get into the spaces that all kind of fold up. I can't wrap my head around exactly how that works, but the beauty of them is that they can get up and out of the way. Yep. So, and then aesthetic, certainly there's aspects like this that add some beauty or interest to the space and the carpets. Here we're going to get into the first, the different floors really quick. Oh, we've got a question.
I need to be oriented a little more on the previous one. Where's the elevator?
Yep. So the elevator is straight back here
Yeah, okay.
in this space. And so as you walk in from the elevator or walk in from the stairs,
Mhm.
the hope is that it's the most presentable space up there, or the most welcoming space.
Yeah, I know where those spaces are.
Yeah.
So then this would be taking out at least one, and maybe also the second room that were added during the 1994-96 renovation.
This plan leaves this room here, this meeting space. Here's the elevator. So the meeting space is directly to the left of the
Okay, so
elevator.
it's the other one that's coming out in this plan.
Yep.
Okay,
And
thank
that-
you.
And that one currently has this window as part of it. So, yep. Any other questions about this image? It is a very interesting and compelling image. So if there's more questions on it.
It's helpful to know where certain things are.
Absolutely. 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 Great.
So I want to make sure I'm visioning it. So those windows are to the next room, not to the outside?
Correct.
Okay.
So the partition has various levels of privacy distortion that they can put onto it. So either we can keep some things very clear with a little bit of kind of fog glass, or we can go very high with that. So it's sort of an example of what's possible with that space, but these are interior glass. And the other piece of that is that some of these things are for safety and transparency with how we're working with our youth, and making sure that there's not a lot of closed doors or spaces. So often when we have new doors that are going in, they're going to have kind of windows in them. So again, we just see what's happening in the spaces.
The one window to the right there is an existing window,
Mhm.
so you still have that view.
And the awnings, obviously, cool. But yes, so this space here is where the current kind of meeting room is, and then moving this way. Then any other questions on this one before I move to our kind of diagrams? And I'll do my best to, I'm pretty good in space, so I'll do my best to help translate that. So this is our first floor. Just to orient ourselves, here's the eastern stairwell coming into the building. Right now, it's not the main stairwell, so you need a fob to get into that one, but you sometimes exit that way. Here's the library with the two doors. Okay, so if that's familiar, the nursery is right here. And then we have our women's bathroom and our men's bathroom. And then we've got the kitchen here, fellowship space, gathering space. So the other thing to note orientation wise, is it currently right here, I believe, or is it this here? Is the meeting room that our confirmation currently uses on Wednesday nights, and other meetings are the smart board is in that meeting space. So that's right here. And on this floor, that's besides the library can be used as a meeting space, this can be used as a meeting space. But with our growth in just use of staff, how we want to use the space, et cetera, the proposal is that we're moving into this space with offices. It gives us a few more offices for full-time staff. And then there's, what is the name of this kind of style of space? Hoteling. So available workplaces. So if somebody comes in for temporary work, they're part-time, fractional, or if they've just got project that they're going to start working on for a few weeks, that this would be a great place for them to set up, design the space how they need it, and can get that work done. We've also got a workroom here where the printer and other materials would be. A meeting room that many people could use. So kind of taking away some space that might be in an individual office space to meet with somebody, and creating more group space that could be used. A collaboration space up here, so a smaller meeting room. And then we've got a single use restroom, so across from the gendered bathrooms. And then one of the bigger pieces here, again, for kind of transparency and security of the spaces, moving this reception area out of the windowed corner and into the gathering space a bit more. And another opportunity to have some aesthetic treatment to help that gathering space look like a very welcoming, and here's where you get information on Sunday mornings, come over and look at this. Or if you're coming in on a weekday, someone who can see everybody who's coming in, check people in, that sort of thing. Any questions on this first floor space?
So what happens with what we've been calling the meeting room
Mhm.
on the first floor? Where will all of the other kinds of groupings that meet there meet?
Yeah, great question. Fantastic question. So um, let me see if I'm there next. I'm going to go ahead and jump down to the basement because I think the basement is where is going to receive quite a bit of that. Right now, the basement space straight out that direction, if you want to walk that way afterwards, is probably maybe one of the least,
I know,
least welcoming
yeah,
spaces.
I know.
So it'd be taking on that and making those spaces upgraded and more welcoming. And part of our work on the drainage, making sure that it's not full of water or mildewy and that sort of stuff, that place is ready to become those meeting spaces that we use more.
So things like circle or well, like the education that Katie is just doing now, prayers will be put in sort of windowless spaces, so to speak, or less light, natural light.
What I would say is that after this renovation, there'll be more options for places to do that that
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to be windowless spaces because I think the upstairs. Oh, Katie has.
Just asking.
Yep.
For example, the prayer Bible study that I'm leading now.
It's on.
I would maybe take that upstairs to the second floor and use some of that space for education and Bible studies that I do. But I'm also excited to use the lower level, which looks to be very, nice in its renovated state.
Yeah, I think part of the goal is that this lower level would be upgraded, so it would be very similar aesthetic to the meeting room. There are windows in all of those rooms down there, and so there would be natural light, and there would be technology, and as well as hearing systems, so that would be helpful. You could also use the upper floor, but I think even Bible studies and things that have been meeting in this room would move to that other space where there are windows, so it would improve that. And the adult forum could even potentially move into those areas with windows and natural light. So I think it could be very welcoming and aesthetically pleasing and a better spaces than we currently have. The other thing is on that main floor, there are two smaller rooms so that if there was a committee meeting or a small group or a smaller gathering or even the council could use that space upstairs as well. But those would not fit a 24-person Bible study.
Yep. So I think at the heart of our hope is that it feels like there's more places you could go as opposed to there's a couple of really good places you can go now.
From the library standpoint, we're really glad to see it stay where it is and so forth. But I would hope that people would not assume that will be a meeting room, because that one of the things that happens is that people won't go in there if there's a meeting going on. And we really want it to be not only a library, but just a lounge area and a place where people can sit and read or meet with somebody else, just one other person and talk. But it should be an open gathering, a kind of a gathering space. So I like the idea of that there are some conference rooms for smaller meetings on the first floor, and that the lower level and the upper level will be available for larger groups.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions on the first floor? It's okay. No.
With this very important discussion that you're leading, to what extent is the room that used to be called the choir room being used? I mean, is that being used for a lot of youth kinds of things?
I don't have the answer to
Yeah,
that.
I don't either. That's why I was asking.
Yep. Do you have an answer to the question there? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that room is used during Lent sometimes for small groups, and we've used it for a few youth meetings, but generally it's not very used just because of the shape and the size. We've had some use, but it's fairly underutilized for sure.
Just to understand the configuration on the entrance area,
Here.
where does Pam sit?
Day to day, where would Pam sit?
So there are two options. So there's the place where it says office admin reception, which is where Pam would be some of the time. But we would also have the potential to have a volunteer there, and then Pam's office would be directly above that, so that Pam would also have the ability to work privately to get projects and things done. And we would have other options for a volunteer or maybe a part-time paid person to be the reception and phone answerer and those kinds of things. So, and that's one of the things that Pam has really requested, is some more time to do projects and things that need sort of concentrated thought that she's not as able to do now when she's having to greet everyone and answer the phone throughout the day. But those are still important things that we want to have available as a welcoming community.
All right. Second floor. We've talked about this a little bit. We've got the removal of one meeting space so that we can create a larger open welcoming space, and then the potential for kind of an intro gathering space to our Sunday school mornings or other events. Coming up from the stairs here, the elevator here, and then moving into our long hallway, there are two bathrooms currently here, a men and women's bathroom. That would be replaced by two single use bathrooms here and two here. And that those would be all non-gendered and ADA compliant. And with some privacy. And some of the reason here is sometimes we have kids that need to go to the bathroom. And so hiking them all the way down to the other end of the hallway. But there's just some convenience with having bathrooms in multiple places. Now we have, 4 spaces for people to do that. Our nursery kind of stays the same. We've got a partition here. We've got a solid wall here. And I believe this is our resource room currently. We've got 2 partitions here. And then down here, we've got a solid wall and another partition on this side of, we currently use this as kind of our music and opening room. This, if you go up there now, this one's called games. This one's called art. This one's called drama. This is called purple or preschool. And this is music. So if you go up there, there's signs on the doors so you can see what each of those rooms are. I tried to convince them there's an outlet to storage room here and oh no, it was on the first floor. I tried to convince them to break out a door to the outside and have a little patio on that storage area over there, lawn chairs and that sort of thing. But so this corridor will also be widened a bit. And so you see here, there's structural pillars, but we're going to be widening that space as well for ease of travel and traverse. Are there any questions on chat at all? I haven't looked at that in a little bit. Any questions about the second floor Sunday school space? Wow. And then this is the basement level. Over here, we've got the youth room. And I think currently we have a wall here, and then it's larger this way. This would put I think take down that wall and put a partition here. So kind of rearrange that space a little bit. The mechanical, electrical. And then we've got 3 meeting rooms that would get those updated partitions as well. So this could even be opened up to be a larger flexible space. And then our additional storage and archive space. And then most notably, we've got currently we have bathrooms here. Do we have bathrooms here and here currently? I'm not as familiar with the bathrooms over here, but there'd be 2 single use here, and then 4 single use placed back behind this wall. we'll see a little bit here in terms of the different scope pieces, what those entail. So currently there is a chimney in the youth room, and that would be removed and taken care of. Microphone.
You. My question is in the storage area. It says updated storage for program and various social ministry storage. I know the intent when I designed the space was to have hanging things for all the art, the 125 pieces we have. I don't understand how that can be shared. What are we talking about? Social ministry storage.
Social ministry, that may be me transposing. I don't know if the summary is there, if there's more detail on that one. So there is a storage room up here, is AWE archive, and then this one says storage. Storage room, Lutheran World Relief and school supplies is the detail here. And then there's storage here. Remove existing fixture caps, plumbing for the possibility of fixtures in future phase. So that would be the question of, I don't know how to reword that question back to you in terms of, it's sort of a question of, would there be space for the hanging of art? Okay. So that may be a clarification of, is there any competing needs for storage down here to that? Or what does the finish end up being so that it can accommodate everything that needs to be down there? Kitchen is still down here.
So we're really not.
Yeah. The other piece that I don't think is shown well on here, and that's on me, the entry space wall. What do we call that? No, I think I didn't keep that in the visual. I did take the colored slide out.
Maybe go to the second floor.
Yep. So there is something we're looking at as a part of this, and the entryway into the main entryway that would come in from the church to the left reaches all the way up, and that's the stairwell that goes from the second floor down to the basement. That we were looking at removing some of that wall and opening that up so that is more visually seen, what for the purpose of people knowing how to get around the church, and again, some aesthetics for kind of opening up that entry space. I don't have that here. We do have that in plans, and it might be on one of those there, but I did not put that in the presentation. I apologize. But yep, so this is the stairwell here. So as it gets below this floor and down towards the meeting where kind of the higher ceiling of the entryway, that wall would be removed. So you sort of see the bottom of that first stairway here, and then you'd see people kind of being able to see them come down this stairway as they get into the main floor. You got a question?
Excellent.
Gene, did you have a clarification?
The door on first floor would actually be removed.
Okay. So
that door that currently exists on first floor will be removed, and it'll be more open, so you can see that is the way up to the second floor.
okay, I don't have that on that map. Yep. We just hand that over, Gene.
That's interesting because I think there were ordinance issues or fire issues that caused us to keep it that way in 1994. So my question was back on the basement level. It looks like the 4 single-use toilets are replacing the shower that we put in.
Yeah, so we did talk to the architect about, code ramifications of opening up that stairwell. And since we put the sprinkler system in, the code now allows us to open it up on one floor.
At least that's his understanding.
Yes.
Question about shower back there. Is the shower, is it currently in one of the bathrooms or do both bathrooms?
It was put in with endowment grants when we were hosting the road home. So that was a place for the folks that were staying here for the week
Mhm.
to shower. I think it might have been used very rarely by staff or whatever, but that was pretty much that was used.
There's a,
Yeah, the road home discontinued using churches as shelters a number of years ago, and there's no plans that they would ever return to that model. So the shower has not been used for many years. And so it seems like a use that's not needed for ministry anymore. And so that was why the single-use toilet seemed like a better use of that space.
uh,
Regarding the removal of that stairwell.
Yeah.
Wall. One of the challenges of the present arrangement is in the entrance in the parking lot. There's no airlock, and so in the cold weather, the cold comes in and it exposes all the way to the present stairs and the gathering space. So if we remove that wall, that's going to expose the stairwell to that too. My question is this going to necessitate some adjustments to the air circulation system and the heating?
great question. Great question. And we'll I appreciate you adding that to our list of things to find out more on.
Taking out the shower, are we a sanctuary church at this point? And are we likely to ever have immigrants staying here and we would need that shower space?
I think that's a great question. And if we needed to evaluate whether or not one of those spaces, one of these 4 single use had a shower, I suppose we could incorporate that. So I think that that's a great question to pose. Yeah, especially as we've done, we're supporting the Ukraine and immigrants coming in from there.
I'll just jump on the shower question. One more issue is, where I work, where most new offices have shower space for people, they can bike to work. They can go running at the lunchtime. I know many of the people who work here probably aren't that far away, but it just seems like a really kind of a lifestyle thing that's important to support. So I would support keeping a shower, at least one in the building for many reasons myself.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, that was aside from the water situation and the solar, that was our most recent quote unquote remodeling project to put that in. And I don't know if that was $6,000 to $8,000. I can't remember anymore, but what was it? I don't know. What was it? Did it go to 10? Okay. So I would say to not really take it out. That would be my thought. My other thought, and then I promise not to ask anymore today. Okay?
Don't
But
make
maybe
promises.
later.
Don't do that. You can ask more.
But the first floor, I'm trying to understand where members would come and go and how. And are we going to have to report in if we want to go in and see somebody? Because I don't see where one can enter.
So on the question of process of checking in and that sort of thing, I don't know that we have all those answers, or if there's more to speak on in that at the moment. In terms of physically being able to get back into the office space, our primary entrance is going to be through here.
Through the where it
So
says
I think this is around the space where the
where
current
it says
door is.
delivery and storage.
Yep.
Oh,
So this is for some delivery and storage. So for delivery, mail.
so we as members cannot come and go. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know that, I'm not intending to say anything like that. I'm not intending to communicate that. I think the primary entrance into this space is through here. That there is mailboxes here because that's where more people are gonna be able to go in, grab things. But I don't have any input in terms of,
Yeah, I think, Nancy, I think that, that's the entrance and egress from the office space, from the administrative offices of the church. And the entry into the gathering space is not changed in this model. So can,
oh,
Is that-
misunderstanding?
is that what you were kind of asking?
Yeah, so
Nancy, is your question whether you can come in and out of the offices? Is that, yeah, I think when there are staff here, there's no change. So Pam sits at the desk and you have to greet her and go by to get in. And the same thing would be where someone would be at that office admin and reception area. But then the entryway would be to the right where it says maybe not quite the best labeling, but delivery and storage. What that means is you would have 2 doors to go through instead of just 1. But the reason is so that when there aren't staff there, people can still come into that first part of the delivery and storage and pick up items, because Pam is very regularly leaving things for people to pick up who come in for a meeting in the evening or come in on the weekend when she's not here. So that allows for those items to be in a space where they're behind a door, so not just anyone might pick them up, but it also allows the office to remain locked so that people don't have access to the offices and the computers and all those kinds of things. But when staff are here, you can come and go just as you would now. The doors are open and you can come in and use the copier or the workroom or greet someone. But so that's the idea behind how that might work.
that only delivery people can go in there? Is that what?
Right, but it does also leave a spot for the UPS and the FedEx and those people to leave things as well, which is important.
But so we could label this main entrance probably in the future plan.
Yeah,
and then but also note that there's space for mail. So I apologize if I didn't explain that well either. And that's great. It's fantastic. So just to be clear, like questions are how we refine this and we get to the point where when it's time to raise money for this, that we've got the maximum people on board to support it. Our goal isn't to create in a vacuum. This is our collective space to use.
2 points. In looking at this plan and how it's being explained, it seems to me, because we've been talking about this morning, practical usages, but thinking in terms of the mission of the church and thinking about what the renovation of the sanctuary has done for our church and its mission, its outreach. Coming here in 1979, Midvale had a long, narrow sanctuary that was dark most of the time, and with the opening of the sanctuary, it's become a much more welcoming place, and we see many more people coming because of it. Taking that along, looking at these plans, that having these shared meeting spaces in a way furthers that mission, because by having shared meeting spaces, different elements or different parts of our congregation become more aware of the others, that Sunday school or youth are not isolated in their own areas, but we're sharing spaces. And that tends to, I think, further the mission of the church and make everyone more aware of the other parts. One other thing, we're optimistic people, but I think we need to be practical. I'm looking at the first floor, the welcoming place.
This space here?
Yes, that table.
Yeah.
Now, heaven help us that this doesn't happen. But if what happens, what is there a plan B where it would be a receiving place if we had health restrictions again? Because that's an open place that you're talking about.
Fantastic.
What would happen there?
Yeah. That's a great question in terms of how would this space transform in light of another pandemic or another health crisis?
Part of the idea is that the wall from that area, that is the reception to the office right above it, where our administrative office manager would have a glass wall, so that it would function similarly as it does right now, where there would be a way to see that people are coming, and then also the wall to the right where it says delivery and storage, which really should say main entrance or something like that,
Yeah.
would also be a glass wall. So that would be open and visible so that people could see. And that also, the delivery storage main area also leaves the opportunity for people to drop something off for the office staff, or vice versa, pick something up without having to come into close contact if we ever do, hopefully not, but if we ever do have to have that kind of restriction again. That's a really good question though. And
Thank you for that.
Eric, would you be willing to say something about the mission? I think you've been really articulate on our committee about how this is advocating for our mission and ministry.
I'm Eric James, and I've been on the what we started off calling the Education Wing Task Force, and it's been a fascinating project. And this is part of what we're called to be, in my opinion. And we have so many things that are wonderful dynamics and wonderful leadership. And Ken and Pastor Katie and Pastor Blake preach like wonderful sermons. And I wear this because I get to help with Vacation Bible School. The energy is astounding, and God is calling us to do this. Jesus has welcomed everyone. Now we need to step up to be as welcoming as we can be. And so, if I say raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, we start to think about the things that we really love currently, and which is something that we have to offer with our community. And we want to keep this strong community here, and we want to reach out to our future and our neighborhoods and things like that. So we have a great opportunity here. And today you're stepping up with additional ways to see that. And we just want to keep going, because we welcome everyone because God welcomes everyone. So how can we go wrong if we follow that? So
Right. Oh,
Thank you. Hi, Paul Sandrock, and I would just like to share that I think this is a marvelous example of trying to take what you can't change, which are the existing walls. You have stairwells, you have pillars, you've got walls. You can't change that, but you've lived with this space for many years and noted the limitations and the challenges of the space. You're trying to plan for a future which has only a certain degree of predictability. And within all of that, you're trying to say, how can we maximize both the space and its flexibility so you're ready for the next 70 years? Knowing that, hey, you'll do the best you can and it will last for a while, and someone else will come along in 20 years and say, and here are changes. But I think, again, a marvelous way of really taking in a lot of information and trying to plan for the future. Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you for that. We got a question over here.
I'm still thinking about Nancy's concern on access to the offices.
Yep.
Could you just put one more door on where behind the oval where it looks like there's a circle?
Excuse me.
And if you could, I think that would increase the feeling of welcome by quite a bit.
Like a door here?
Yeah,
Like
so you
office?
didn't have to go back into the hallway through the other room, so you could go more directly. It just feels more welcoming to me.
Although, I mean, that's where she's gonna be sitting, so you're gonna be in front of the table, so it's just moving over to the right.
Well, I think
Yeah.
the sentiment is I hear the sentiment of how does it feel like it's come on in, or that it's a very clear way of getting into there. So I think that's a sentiment that I want to take home.
So just on this, this small point, I just sketching something up, and I think to me, it seems kind of weird to have to go through the delivery storage to get to the other offices. And I'm just wondering if you could, I hate to make Pam's office smaller, but could you put a second glass, make that more of a hallway, and like go, I almost have to show you my drawing, but add a wall in her office. So there's the hallway is extended to the left, so that if you're going from the open area, yeah, and then you can go down to the right instead of going through the delivery storage to get to the remainder of those offices.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think these are really good suggestions, and the goal is really to make it as open and welcoming as possible. I think seeing that wall when if it was really a glass wall on the left side, and not really thinking of it as delivery and storage, but really a reception might be a better area. Like if you come into an area, there would be a very nice counter with cabinets underneath and mailboxes for the committees and all the various people. And those doors during the day when the office was open would probably be propped open, would be one way to welcome that. But there could be another way too. But the idea was to not have Pam or other staff have to deal with every person who comes in, but have them be able to be greeted and welcomed and then directed to wherever it is they needed to go in a direct way. So, but I think the idea of wanting it to be as welcoming and good as possible is a sentiment we need to keep working on.
What I'm hearing is that people would rather see no wall here and no door here, so you only have to go into one door. But I think we really do need to think about what it's like to be on staff here, and especially Pam's job, where people come in 5 days a week she's here, and kind of have an expectation that this person is available for my needs, and I'm working on something for the church, and kind of put that ahead of whatever that person might be doing that day. And I think that can be a hazard. So I think that's probably why we've got this divider. It seems like maybe this door is not going to be locked then. It'll be an open door that you can go in, and if you have business there, you can get in. If you're here during business hours, you'll obviously be able to do anything else too. So I guess it's more a matter of visualization, because I think we need to keep in mind what it's like to be on staff, and you work for the church and you work for all the members, but necessarily, your day is maybe mapped out, and you may not have that availability whenever somebody thinks that you might.
I think it highlights the challenges that a two-dimensional top-down visual can provide for what the space will actually look and feel like. So all of these questions and concerns are a natural part of getting towards the three-dimensional and getting towards what it will actually look like. So I don't want anybody to feel bad about not feeling like they know what the space looks and feels like yet. And all those questions and concerns will be.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I had an office where people had to go through my office to get to someone else's office, and everybody felt the need to say hi to me, which was really annoying. I'm like, just go.
I have a question on, I assume we sometimes have people just come walking in that don't belong to the church, might be homeless or whatever. Can they just come right in that door? And is there a safety issue there, is I guess what I'm asking.
The question is, how open is our space for people to come in? And if anybody has a good answer or any information on what we've done in the space, because I know in the last couple of years, there's been a lot done around the space to limit the access to the building as a whole. And currently our main entrance is the primary entrance people come in. The other entrances are locked unless you have a key fob. And this position, I think, is the hope is that they'd be able to see that front door, that main entrance if somebody's coming in. But I don't know any numbers on how often that's happening. Somebody's coming in that's not a member of the church.
There are also the TV, I call them TV screens because I
Yeah, yeah.
don't know what else to call them,
Yeah.
but they're there. So, yeah,
Correct.
but that would enhance an individuals to see somebody right away. Yeah, I mean,
Are you in terms of, is there security?
yes,
Okay, so she has security TV as well.
yeah.
Those
But-
are part of, were they part of that recent install as well, or security of that space? Or have we had those for a long time?
Blake, I don't know how long we've had those. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a question over here, and we are, what is our time? Just a couple minutes. So we got,
Just a really quick comment, and there are many of you understand how to read these drawings much better than I, but back to that welcoming table or desk. I mean, that is a desk, correct? So
Yes.
another way,
oh,
The drawing, that's actually a ceiling feature. It doesn't show.
oh, so this is not the desk itself. This is above the desk.
That's a ceiling feature.
Okay.
that Draws people's attention to, oh, this is the place where I.
and I'm on the committee, so I should know that. But
All right.
as I was sitting here looking at this and hearing these great questions, but it occurred to me that as I was envisioning it more of a welcoming desk, that if you think about walking in, you would then in fact be going behind somebody's desk to go in, which actually isn't as, you know what I mean? Because we're just so used to that. So it might not actually seem that strange to just go to that door to the right, as
Sure.
opposed to like walking around somebody's desk to get it. You know what I mean? So it's just another perspective to think of.
Thank-
And then very quickly, I just want to add what others have said. I've been on this committee since the very beginning, and one of the things that I'm most excited about is this space down here. I mean, we are, just to piggyback what others have said, we have a huge building here that's been largely unused because it's been musty. And I know we've addressed a lot of those issues, but I'm just want to say quickly, I'm so excited about the opportunities that we may have that we haven't even dreamt of yet by making all of this space usable and functional.
Yeah, just to clarify, Pastor Blake said that oval is not a desk. It's a light for the people at home. That's a light or some sort of a ceiling fixture.
We
so
have
it's not a
more
table.
questions. Can we get to both of those and then we'll wrap it up?
The only thing I just wanted to point out is the entry space to the office. How is that going to work for handicap accessibility?
Great question.
So if somebody is in a wheelchair or things like that, I think for a lot of us visually, it just looks like a very small space. And it might not be the easiest to go through if you're with a family or things like that. And so I think that's maybe something that people are looking at.
Great question. Thank you.
I have a question about office space because I am assuming that each pastor has a separate office and we really have 5 paid staff. We have Pastor Blake and Katie, then we have Pastor Ken, we have Brenda, and we have Laura. And I don't really see places for those people to have, you've got an office, collaborative office. Is that where Ken and Laura and Brenda all work? Or how does, I don't know how this is planned out, but I know that in the initial discussions, there was a need for some kind of private space for most of the staff. And I don't necessarily see that. And that may not be their choice anymore. But I think we need to have some understanding about how these people are going to work in this space.
Great. So Blake can answer that question, then we will wrap up.
So we have shared this plans with all the current staff multiple times, and everyone seems very positive about how it would function for them. The 3 offices on the right would be for the full-time program staff, the 2 pastors and the youth and family minister. The 2 offices on the far left would be for the office manager and the business manager, which currently is Pam and Amanda. And then the work area, which is quite a bit larger than the small little cubby we have right now, would be for part-time staff to come in and have a computer space and a desk and a workstation. And that would be Pastor Ken or Laura or Marita Herkert Oakland or other staff who come in part-time. And then if they needed a private area for counseling or a phone call, they could use the collaboration room or the conference and counseling room, so that those are more flexible and not dedicated just to one person for the whole day, when maybe they're there every other day for 3 hours or something like that.
Awesome. Oh,
I'll just point out, most office spaces nowadays are pretty open and not much in the way of true private office spaces, whether you like it or not. So this is kind of standard.
cool. Well, I just, the last pieces of this, and it makes sense that we've got 4 scopes of work from 2019, A, B, C, and D. C had to do with the entry canopy piece, but we've pulled that from this project to focus on the ministry wing. A is the largest part of this. B is the solar panels and roof replacement, and D is primarily just these restrooms back here. So you can see how those are broken down. These were the numbers that we got, I believe, in 2019. And the best estimate we have at the moment, until we get the final numbers, is that we expect about a 30% increase. So we are still working on numbers. We're still working on finalizing these. All of the questions that you've brought today is exactly what we were hoping for, to get this conversation rolling, so that as we start reevaluating and making final decisions, that today's circumstances are imprinted on this and not just 2019's kind of circumstances. So thank you all for coming today, asking your questions, and being a part of this conversation moving forward. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
Absolutely.